Women cycle every 28 days. Men cycle every 24 hours. Let's think about that for a second. So men typically will go through their spring, summer, fall, and winter in a matter of 24 hours. So if you wonder why your husband can wake up every morning, ready to go, get the work done through the day, wrap up in the afternoon, and turn in for the evening with like no problem every day, that's why. His cycle's over 24 hours, where you might be saying, wow, I'm super energized and I can't even sleep. I'm feeling like I'm just ready to rock and roll. And then the next week, you just don't want to talk to anybody. You'd rather live in a cave and never leave your bed. And your husband sort of wonders what's wrong with you, right? So hi there, and welcome back to another quick inspiration that I hope you will find of value and be able to implement as soon as today. So this is something that's super relevant to me today, so I thought that I would share it with you in case you find it of use. So in doing some of my reading, and specifically I want to reference Kate Northrup and her book, Do Less, which I just finished last week. In some of my reading, I have learned, and I knew some of this, that we as humans actually work in cycles, right? So often we think of time as something that's linear, a start to finish, a beginning and end, but actually it's extremely cyclical, right? So our mornings and our nights move one into another. Our years had one into another. So we can even think of a clock, right? There's a reason a clock is round. And this really came to the forefront for me when someone asked me, well, actually, she asks in the book if I can see time. And I recognize that not everyone can. So if this is you, this will be really an interesting exercise. So if I were to ask you to point to the month of May, what might you do? Where would you point? So I personally, if I were to point to the month of May, would point to my right. And if you were to tell me to point to the month of March, I would point to my left. If you were to tell me to point to December of 2018, in my head, I would actually go back through 2019 over here to December of 2018. So I've asked a few people about this, and many have said if I asked them to point to the month, I actually had one friend that like pointed to the calendar, very literally to the calendar. Or maybe writing it down and then pointing to the word. So you may not actually see time in the way that I'm referencing, but the reason I bring this up is because most of us have always figured time to be linear, right? January to December, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But actually, like I mentioned, it's cyclical. It runs in a cycle. And so I noticed that when I think about seeing time, I do see time in cycles. So when I mentioned that I go back through 2019 to December of 2018, I do that because I'm going back through a cycle to that year. My years in my head are look like this. So maybe you think I'm completely weird and you're going to turn this off now. But there's a point to what I'm saying. So when we talk about time being cyclical, what that does is it allows us to recognize that there's not necessarily a start and a finish, but rather maybe highs and lows, peaks and valleys, beginnings and ends in a different sort of sense, right? And so the reason that Kate in her book brings this up is because our bodies also operate in cycles. Now, this might feel a little bit like woo-woo to get started, but hopefully you get where I'm coming from. So for women, typically we cycle every 28 days, right? We're familiar with that. And those cycles are broken down into 4 parts. Now we can actually track those 4 parts very similarly to the seasons. So I'm not going to go super in depth into those cycles. Maybe we will in another video. But here we're talking about the 4 seasons as they relate to the way your body reacts throughout the month. Okay, so we have spring, summer, fall, and winter. Your spring is going to be a period of time in which during the month you feel energized. Maybe you're starting new projects, you're feeling creative, open to new ideas. Your summer is going to come around, and that's a period of time where you're feeling just really on top of the world. You're noticing that your energy is high. People might even find you more attractive during that period of time. You're really plugging through those ideas that you were thinking of in the spring, and now you are here in the summer executing on them. Then we come into the fall. The fall is a period of time where we start to turn inward in on ourselves. We start to think internally. Maybe our energy starts to slow a bit, but we start to really get things done. So the fall is a period of time where if you've started projects in the spring and you've executed in the summer, it's a great time in the fall to start wrapping them up. And then in the winter is a period of time where you're going to actually really turn inward. We can almost think, I almost feel like I'm hibernating in the winter. This is a great time to ask yourself really questions that need to be pondered, questions that need to be thought of. Do some deep inner work because you're already going to be focused internally. So I just mentioned those seasons, and you might be thinking that I'm talking about through the year, but I'm actually talking about through the month. Now, through the year as well, but when I'm talking about the way that it references to the month is those 28 days. Now, like I mentioned, for women that are cycling, this tracks completely with your cycle. For women that maybe aren't cycling, your body is still going through these changes. And actually, it's really interesting. They link up to the moon. So again, I'm not going to go totally woo-woo on you, but something to think about. Now, the biggest awakening to me was recognizing that women cycle every 28 days. Men cycle every 24 hours. Let's think about that for a second. So men typically will go through their spring, summer, fall, and winter in a matter of 24 hours. So if you wonder why your husband can wake up every morning, ready to go, get the work done through the day, wrap up in the afternoon, and turn in for the evening with like no problem every day, that's why. His cycle's over 24 hours, where you might be saying, wow, I'm super energized and I can't even sleep. I'm feeling like I'm just ready to rock and roll. And then the next week, you just don't want to talk to anybody. You'd rather live in a cave and never leave your bed. And your husband sort of wonders what's wrong with you, right? So there's a reason for this. I would like to talk to you or really give you a resource, I guess, as to, or a tip for how to start using this to your advantage. So for example, today I woke up feeling energized, still feeling, good energy that really hasn't changed over the last week or so, but feeling a little bit nauseous, like just a little bit uncomfortable, slightly off. Maybe my head feels a little bit like a headache. And when I actually went back through what I've been tracking in terms of my energy levels and my moods, I'm right on track for that same symptom. So right around this time of month, every single month, I get little pangs of like nausea in the morning. It usually happens for about 3 days. And that's typically in line with my summer phase as I move into my fall, right? I'm just kind of shifting my energies and hormones. So I'm going to provide you with a free resource that's going to help you track these things for yourself. For all my guys out there, you might find this of value. I still think it's important to track that throughout the day and to recognize in your day where and when might be the best time to do things. Although I think sometimes because it's the same every day, it's a little easier. But for my ladies out there, there's a great resource I'm going to provide for you that's going to help you work through this over the course of a month. And once you do this for about a month or two, you're going to really start seeing some trends and find at which points during the month are going to be better opportunity for starting, finishing, working on projects, and giving yourself a little bit of permission to just be where you are. So when I recognize today that I feel kind of and I know that that's normal and it's where I'm supposed to be, then I can go about my day saying, that's just where I am, and I'm going to honor that and support what my body needs. So I hope you find this of help. Please go check out her book. It was a huge eye-opener for me, and she actually references a few other professionals in that area that speak on the same subject. With that said, enjoy the rest of your day. Start tracking that energy and those mood levels, and give yourself permission to just be where you are and feel how you feel, because your body knows best.